and then start broadcast.
Where's that?
Top right up there. And as soon as you hit that, people will be able to hear us. Oh.
Okay, you're going to talk first, right?
No?
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
You have to talk about how to use that. Good morning, everyone. This is Kelly Merrill and Brian Hailey here to talk to you today about survey in Civil 3D.
Oops. So if you haven't joined us for a presentation before, I just want to go over some steps and things for using the go-to interface. You can change how you want to listen, so if you don't want to listen through your mics and speakers, you can change it to telephone and dial in, and then you type in your audio pin so you can connect with us. If you ever have a question, feel free to type it in the question box, and we will get to them as we can. You can also raise your hand. So over there on the little console is the raise your hand. In fact, if I could get everybody to go ahead and raise their hand for me, that way I know that y'all can hear me, I would appreciate it. All right, we got several people that can hear me. Perfect. Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and put everybody's hands down. So if you have any questions and if you actually want to talk to us, you can raise your hand. I'm not sure we're going to have time for that today, but well, we might. You never know.
Okay, just a few promotions I want to mention that are going to be expiring on July 25th. We've got the 20% off upgrading to the next level, which would be upgrading to one of the design suites. And we've also got the $200 instant rebate on AutoCAD LT or the Revit LT suite, also expiring on the 25th. And then the financing, this is 2.5% on a 24-month or 3.5% on a 36-month deal, and this is also valid till July 25th. There is a $10,000 minimum to qualify for the financing. And last but not least, we've got a building design suite camp coming up in October on the 29th and an infrastructure design suite camp on October 30th. There is a charge for this. It's a one-day for $175.
I'm really excited about this because so many people are getting the suites now, the design suites. This is going to be a great opportunity for you to get in here and see some workflows on how to take stuff from one program into another program and have this interoperability thing. So I'm really excited about these.
Okay, and last but not least,
again.
Another last but not least topic. Not sure if you guys are aware that CAD-1 is an approved school through the state of Colorado. This will allow you to download a student version of any of the software products to use for a year.
If you take a class from us.
If you take a class from us, that's right.
All right. And this also allows, you know, to use tuition and things like that. So, all right, well, let's just go ahead and get on to this presentation here real quick. So what are we talking about today? Well, we're talking survey. There's lots of different things that go on with survey. So what are we going to be showing you? What are you going to see today when it comes to the survey? Well, the first thing we need to talk about is point display. How do you control the display of your survey points? So when you bring points into your drawing, how do you get them to display the way you want them to display? And so the way we're going to go through that is with description key sets. Next, the line work creation. So you go out and you survey a piece of land and you've taken all these codes, and now when you bring that data into Civil 3D, you just want it to automatically create the line work for you. So I'm going to show you some tips and techniques on how to get your line work to create correctly. And then finally, if we have time, we're going to get into boundary work. So I'm creating the planner has given me the layout of the new subdivision, and now I need to start labeling line work for, you know, a plat or, you know, something along those lines. So how do we go about doing those types of things? Now, before we get too far into the presentation here, there's a couple of things I want to ask you guys. So I've got some polls here. So let's see. First of all, what version of Civil 3D are you guys using? So are you up and current on 2014? Maybe you're still on 2013. Maybe you're a little bit longer, behind than that. Maybe you're not even using Civil 3D at all. So if you'll take a moment and answer that for me, I'd appreciate it. All right, let me go ahead and close that, and let's see how we did here. So it looks like most people are using 2013, which is kind of to be expected. I kind of expected a few more on 2014, but that's all right. And it looks like everybody here is using Civil 3D, so that's good to see as well. So if you're not using Civil 3D, are you planning to upgrade soon? Now, maybe you're already on 14. Maybe you're just waiting. Maybe as soon as this webinar is done, you're going to go grab the discs and install them. So maybe as soon as you can. Maybe you're waiting just a little bit after the first service pack comes out. I know a lot of people wait for the service packs before they'll install the newest version. Maybe you're not planning on upgrading at all. You're happy where you are. So that's another option as well. All right. Let me share this here real quick. So it looks like most people that, that if you aren't using Civil 3D 2014, looks like you're waiting for the service pack, which is, again, kind of what I expect. I suppose that as soon as we can have already done the upgrades, so that's why nobody's chosen that. And last, how many people are watching this presentation with you? I just kind of like to get an idea of how many people I'm talking to. So are you all alone, just yourself watching it? Maybe you just have a couple of friends and you have somebody sitting in the office with you. Maybe you got the boardroom going on and you got 3 to 5 people, or maybe you got a whole bunch of people with you. All right, looks like everybody's loners. Yeah, I know how it goes. You're sitting in your office, you're watching the webinar while you're doing work, so well, at least somebody has a friend. I've got a friend. Her name's Kelly. She's here with me, so. Well, that's enough of that stuff. Let's go ahead and get into Civil 3D. So the first thing I'm going to talk about today is the description key sets. So let me go ahead and switch over to Civil 3D here real quick. And let me just go ahead and start a new drawing here. So I'm going to start a brand new drawing. I've got a template set up for this presentation. So let me go ahead and start the new drawing from a template. Always start a drawing from a template. All right? That's just what you should do. So the description key sets are going to be found underneath the Settings tab, Point, Description key sets. So you can see this particular file already has a description key set up. And basically what the description key set says is as the points are coming into the drawing, it's going to filter through the description key set, and the description key set is going to assign properties to the points. So if I come in here and I edit these keys, you'll see these are the keys that I've created for my surveying firm. Now, in a real surveying firm, this would be a much longer list, but well, I am a professional engineer, and so I'm just limiting it to what I'm going to demo here. So the way this works is you go out and you survey a point, and your point will match on something here. So in this case, I'm looking at TC. So when you go out and you survey TC, it's going, or let's look at this one here instead. So when I shoot something out in the field and I code it SMH, this is going to have the style assigned to it, a sanitary sewer manhole, and it's going to have this label style assigned to it, and it's going to take SMH, the raw description, what was coded out in the field, and convert it to a full description of sewer manhole. It's going to put the point on a specific layer, and, well, in this case, that's all it's going to do. So if I come over here into my drawing, let me just make this a little bit smaller here, and I'll go create a point. So I'll go to my point creation tools. If you've ever taken a class with me, you always know I'm talking about the prompt force. So before you ever create points in Civil 3D, go double check your prompt force. So I'm just going to expand out my create points. point creations and double check my prompt force. So as you can see right now, the prompt for elevations is set to manual. Prompt for description is set to manual. So this is going to allow me to type in my descriptions. So I'm just going to create a point, manual, pick a point, and I'm going to give the description of SMH. And elevation, I don't know, 100. If you notice, it doesn't do what we expected it to do. Well, the reason is my description keys are case sensitive. So as you can see, this is capitalized, this is lowercase. So when I typed in the description, I did it lowercase. Let me go ahead and do another one, do the exact same thing. The only difference is I'm going to do it uppercase now. It's SMH. And I'll give it an elevation of 100 as well. And so you can see this time it matched the description key. SMH matched the description key, so it assigned the style, sanitary sewer, to the point. It assigned the description, or the label, which in this case is the same as the default layer, but it also converted it from SMH to sewer manhole. And that's what we see labeled in the point. Now, description keys can do additional things as well. A very good common one would be a tree. So, for example, here's a tree. Right, it's got the style tree assigned to it. But in this case, when I do a tree, I want to size the point based off of the diameter of the tree. So I have a point style set up for a tree that has a 1-inch caliper. That's kind of my default one. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a few changes here. I am actually going to use this scale parameter, and I'm going to use parameter 1. So whenever you're dealing with points in description keys, spaces define parameters. So everything before the very first space is the code of the point. After the first space is the first parameter. After the second space is the second parameter. After the third space is the third parameter, etc. So in this case, I want to scale based off of the first parameter. And I want to apply that scale to the X and the Y. So I need to make sure I toggle on the X and the Y. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go create a tree. And I'm going to use the description TR, and so that matches my description key set, space 1. And I'll give it an elevation of 100. There is my 1-inch caliper tree. Now I'm going to do the same thing. TR, oops, capitalize, TR, space 5. So this is a 5-inch caliper tree. An elevation of 100. And so you can see the point now is 5 times as large as the 1-inch caliper. So it's taking the point and it's scaling it by the second parameter. Now I also want to put in I don't like this TR1 for the code in the point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the format here to change things up a little bit. So basically what I want to do is I want to take the caliper of the tree and I want to put that in the description, but I want to put it in a way that makes sense. So I want to take that very first parameter, $1, the dollar sign indicates a parameter, $1, put in the inch symbol, tree. So it's going to take that first parameter and then it's just going to put text after it. So now let me go ahead and create another point here real quick. I'll create a manual point and I'm going to put in a 3-inch tree. So TR space 3 with an elevation of 100, and now you can see it's a 3-inch tree. Now if you've noticed, these other points didn't update when I changed the description key. Description keys act as a filter. So as the point is being created, it's going to filter through the description keys and it's going to have the different properties assigned to them at that time. Likewise, if I come over here and I edit this point, so it's capitalized, you'll notice, likewise, it didn't match the description keys again. So once you've changed the description key set and you want to make those changes to the points in your drawing, you actually need to tell it to update the points. And if I want to do it for all of the points, I can just go to my All Points point group, and apply the description keys. And you can see the points in my drawing update for the description keys. There's additional things you can do in the description key set. You can use a parameter to note the rotation of something. So for example, if I have a utility pole with a guy wire, out in the field I can code in the rotation of the guy wire, and it'll rotate the point symbol for me automatically. You can use it to rotate the labels as well. I don't see people using that one very often. The scale I see quite a bit. The rotation I see a little bit of the marker. The labels I don't see much at all. And that's the way description keys work. So you need to go through and set up your template so that you have the description keys. And always, always start with a template. If you don't, you're just asking for trouble. So let me go ahead and get rid of these points. Actually, let me go ahead and close this drawing. And I'm just going to create a brand new blank drawing using that same template. And so I'm starting off my project, and I have a point file. I want to bring in my point file. So I'll just go to the Insert tab, and I'm going to do Points from File, and I will add in my point file. So this is a PNEZD point file. Select OK. As you can see, my points come in. My sanitary sewer points come in as sewers. My boundary points come in as boundaries. My water valves come in as water valves. My utility poles come in as utility poles. And this is all because of the description key set. And so I got a couple more things up here as well. And it's really simple to do. Once you get them set up, all you have to do is bring the points in and they come into the correct location. Now, one thing I always like to do before I bring my points in, I will go into my point settings. So points, point creation tools, and I'm going to expand out the tools to go into my settings. And what I like to do is I like to set a default layer as kind of a catch-all layer. So if a point matches a description key, the description key is going to assign a layer to it. If the point doesn't match the description key, it's going to go on this layer. So whenever I'm importing points and I'm using my description keys, I kind of like to set a catch-all layer. And I like to call it, say, kind of following along with the, so I'll do v-node-miscellaneous. You can name it whatever you like. And now whenever I bring points in and they don't match the description keys, this is the layer it's going to go onto. So freeze all of your point layers and thaw this layer, and any points that you see, well, those were miscoded out in the field. Maybe there was something unique in the field that wasn't in your description key set, so you can go add it to it. All right. Let's get into some automatic line work creation tools now. So again, I'm just going to go create a new drawing. And let's talk about this. So Civil 3D introduced the line work code sets, which makes life a lot easier. We no longer have to use fieldbook files to auto-generate line work for us. So under the Survey tab, you'll notice the line work code sets. You can create your own code set if you want. I'm just going to use the one that comes with Civil 3D, the sample one. So I'm just going to right-click on it and edit it so we can get an idea of what this does. So as I'm bringing in my points into the survey database, I can tell it to process line work. If I tell it to process the line work, it will use this to create the line work for me. So I need to have my line work code set up, and basically what I do is I come in here and I say, okay, what code do I want to use to begin a figure? What code do I want to use to end a figure? Curves. I want to begin a curve. I want to end a curve. I want to do a circle. I want to do a point on a curve, things like this. So I need to go through and set this up to work the way my surveyors work. If you're not doing any sort of field to finish automatic line work type stuff, just use what's here. But if your crews are used to using specific codes, you can change this to match that. All right, so let me just do a couple of examples here. So I'm going to create some points. I'm going to pretend that I'm out in the field surveying right now. All right, so I'm just going to go to my point creation tools. I'm going to go check my prompt force. Prompt for elevations is set to manual. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set that to automatic just so I don't have to constantly be typing in elevations here. And my descriptions are set to manual. Perfect. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to survey. And the way I'm going to simulate survey is just by putting points in my drawing. All right, and let me give an idea. So let me draw a polyline here about, I don't know, 20 feet. There we go. Just to give me a decent scale. So I'm going to do points, and I'm going to go survey. Now I'm going to do a real basic survey. I'm going to do flow line, center line, and of a road, and that's it. So I'm going to start here. Enter a point description. So this is going to be flow line 1. Number your flow lines. Now this is the very first shot, so I'm not worried about it. I'm just going to do flow line 1. There's my flow line. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to do center line 1. This is the first center line I've surveyed. And hang on just a second. That zoomed in too close. And this will be flow line 2. Now let me assign some labels to these. And I'm just going to do description only because that's really all I'm... Ooh! Throwback to old label styles. I must have created this a while ago. Bob is the throwback. That one of the default settings in one of the old templates had Bob on here. Let me go ahead and edit that real quick. That's kind of embarrassing. Not the end of the world. There we go. That's better. So there's flow line 2, and now I'm just going to kind of continue on. Here's flow line 2, back to center line 1, and back to flow line 1. I'm surveying really sloppy. You'd probably be a little bit better out in the field. So here's flow line 1, and you can see I'm just zigzagging across my street, and I would continue this on until I get to the end of my survey. And so what Civil 3D is going to do is it's going to come in here and say, okay, here's flow line 1. Let me go ahead and connect it with the next flow line 1, and then the next flow line 1. Center line 1 to center line 1 to center line 1, flow line 2 to flow line 2 to flow line 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this data and I'm going to import it into a survey database. So under the Home tab, I'm going to choose Import Survey Data. I'm going to go create a new survey database, and I'll just call this one Line Work Example. Now, whenever you create a survey database, always go double check your survey database settings. So edit this survey database settings. And double check your distance. By default, it's set to international foot. I know here in Colorado, almost everything is U.S. survey foot. So change it. There are ways to change it so it defaults to U.S. foot, but always double check it because that can really hurt you. I'm going to go next. My data source, I'm just going to grab points that are in this drawing. So I'm going to choose points from the drawing, and I'm going to select the points. Oh, got to save the drawing first. And in this case, I'm just going to select them all. So 9 points here. Specify the network. You don't have to use a network. The only time you have to use a network is if you're using the old method of processing a fieldbook file. I'm not doing a fieldbook file. I don't care about the network. I'm just not going to use one. Figure prefix database. Let me go ahead and use the one that ships with Civil 3D. All right, so this is the basic figure prefix database. Do you want to process the line work during import? So do you want it to create those lines for you? Well, yeah, absolutely I do. Now, if you're using a fieldbook file and the fieldbook actually has the codes to create the line work, make sure this is set to no. The fieldbook file will create the line work for you, and then this will process line work based off the point descriptions. So you actually get duplicate line work. So I don't want to do that if I'm doing a fieldbook file. All right, that line work code set, that begin end codes that I was showing you. And if you don't remember, I didn't assign any begin or end codes here. All right, everything else looks good. I'll go ahead and finish that. All right, and no line work was created. Why? Well, I never told it to begin a line. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to modify this point. So I'm going to edit the point. And in the raw description, I'm just going to put a space, oops, B. I got that right? Yeah, okay, good. So you just put in the figure name, and then you tell it to begin, and you just put a space B. And again, that came from the line work code set. So the begin code is B. So now, if I import this again, so let me just go ahead and re-import this data. And again, I'm going to select all the points. You can see a figure was drawn through my flow line here. That's the process. Code it, give it the, or take the descriptions, give it the line work codes, and you get line work. Now, one of the nice things here is you don't have to tell everything to begin. If you notice, in my line work code set, there's an option here that says automatic begin on figure prefix match. So the figure prefix database says, okay, when I'm creating a flow line, assign these properties to it. Very similar to the way description keys work. So let me come up here and modify this figure prefix database. And you can see right now it's blank. There's nothing in here. So I'm doing flow lines and center lines. So let me go ahead and add a center line and flow line. If you notice, I did not put an asterisk here. The description key sets will match the code exactly. So if you do flow line 1, flow line 2, flow line 3, and you all want those to be flow lines, in the description key set, you do FL asterisk. This is a figure prefix database. So whatever starts with whatever's typed here is going to match. So that's all I'm going to do for now. Let me go ahead and re-import the points. Again, I'll do all of them. And now you can see they all matched, even though the other ones didn't have a begin code on it. Why? Well, CL and FL both match the figure prefix database. So if you have a figure prefix database, and if you've got those codes that you use all the time, it's as easy as simply numbering your features. That's all there is to it. I don't have to tell it to begin. All right, so let's say, for example, I have a driveway here, and I don't want my flow line to go across the driveway. I'm making something up. Once I get on the other side of the driveway, I just start a new feature code, FL3. Oops. Try that again. There's FL3, there's CL1, there's FL1, flow line 1, center line 1, and flow line 3. So when I go re-import this again, you can see now there's a gap there because I have 3 different flow line survey figures now. Figure prefix database can also mark them to be break lines. So that I have these specific codes that are always break lines. So flow line, center line, toe, tops, those are definitely going to be break lines. You know, fences, property lines, those types of things will not be break lines. All right, so Trey asks, what are the magenta circles at each of the vertices? Well, this is the survey figure. The survey figure can be set up to display however you want. If you don't like the magenta circles, it's just a property of the figure style. So I can come in here and tell it, you know what, I don't want to see the markers at the vertices. Just go ahead and turn that off, and I don't see those silly little vertices anymore. Good question, Trey. If you were here in the office, I'd give you a Jolly Rancher just because it was awesome. All right. Now, another thing we can do, so here I've got flow line 1 again, and again, I've got a curb cut here. I've got something going on, and but this is all still the same flow line. I don't want to have to go create a separate figure number for each one. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to do flow line 1 space, oops, let me erase that. Let's try that again. I miscoded. I'm going to do flow line 1 space begin. I want to begin flow line 1 again. All right, center line 1, flow line 3, flow line 3, center line 1, and flow line 1. So again, I'll go ahead and re-import this, and you can see how flow line 1 gapped. So I'll put a gap in there between flow line 1 because I told it to begin another figure. So if you want to keep using the same number, flow line 1, you can just tell it to begin again. Other codes that I have, curves. So I'm just going to do center line just because I get tired of typing the different numbers. So here's where my center line curve begins. So CL1 space BC, begin curve. And again, that begin curve came from this line work code set. So if I scroll down here, you can see begin curve is BC. All right, and then I'll come over here and I'll say, so my center line 1, and we could still be doing the cross-section method here. They don't have to be continuous. Center line 1, and this is going to be really sloppy. Center line 1, and let's see, we're making a throw up the mountain. So center line 1, and here we're going to put in a point of tangency. And then center line 1 and center line 1. So if you noticed, I used a different code here than what was in the line work code set. So if I go re-import this now, things just aren't quite working. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my code set to match the way my surveyors like to work. So I'll go edit my code set. Instead of end curve, I'm going to put this in as PT, point of tangency. And so now you can see I've got a begin curve, I've got an end curve, and now it fits curves through those points for me. And at this point, I've ended the curve. So again, this is another example of how to go in and modify this. Now, one thing that I found is I think is pretty cool. Let me go ahead and do another flow line here. So here's a flow line. Let's see what I'm up to now. 4. Oops. Let me do it again. I didn't want to hit enter. Flow line 4. And what I want to do is I want to do curb and gutter. So I'm going to do a horizontal offset of 2 feet to the right. So I'm going to do H 2. So H indicates a horizontal offset of 2. And I'm going to do a vertical offset of 2 inches. So 0.16. I also want to, so that'll take me to the edge of asphalt. I also want to go to the back of curb. So I'm going to do a horizontal offset of 0.5 and a vertical offset of a minus 0.5. So I'm going to left. So this is going to create 2 figures, one to the right and one to the left of the figure that I'm surveying. And it's always based off of that original line. It's not based off of the last offset here. So I code that in. There's my flow line 4. And here's flow line 4 and flow line 4. And I could do a curve in here if I wanted to. I'm just going to stop with this here. And I'll go ahead and re-import the data. And you can see how it puts those offsets there for me. Oh, see, I did it backwards. The horizontal should be a minus 0.5, and the vertical should have been 0.5. Let me try that again. I miscoded. So the horizontal should have been a minus 0.5, and the vertical should have been a positive 0.5. All right? So you can see how easy it is to make the change. I just go edit the data, re-import the data. And there, that looks better. All right, so I got my flow line, back curb, and edge of asphalt. And it just continues on until I'm done. So if you get everything set up correctly, when it comes time, you go out and you do your survey, you bring the survey in. Let me go ahead and show you here real quick. Create a brand new drawing here using my template. So in this case, I have a description key set up. My description key is set up for my surveyor, my survey crew, and these are the keys that they're going to use. All right, so my surveyors, these are the key, based off of that book of all those codes that they use, I've input that in here, and they're all going to come in perfect. I have a description key set up, or I'm sorry, a figure prefix database set up, so when they create those figures, they're going to be created correctly. So for example, an EP, edge of pavement, is that a break line? Well, absolutely it is. Is it a lot line? No. What layer is it going to go onto, and what style of figure is it going to use? So what I like to do is I like to use just one style for my figures, and I create this style called by block. Just go into the style and just display what you want, and then set all the properties of it to by block and set the layer to 0, and then it'll display according to, well, the figure. If the figure's on a red layer, it'll be red. If it's on a green layer, it'll be green. Here I've got a lot line and a right-of-way line. Are those break lines? No. Are they lot lines? Yes. So these figures are actually going to create parcels for me. So let me go ahead and import some survey data here. So again, I'll just come up to the import survey data command. I'm going to go create a new survey database. And let's see, I'll call this one intersection. Again, always go edit your survey database settings. Make sure it's set correctly. So that needs to be US foot. You can assign a coordinate zone if it's in a grid coordinates. All right, my data source in this case is going to be a point file. I'll go ahead and add in the point file. Just so we can see what's in this point file, let me go ahead and open it for you here real quick. So you can see it's just a point number, northing, easting, elevation description. But my descriptions have those begin curves, end curves, codes on them as well. And I haven't done much other than just numbering them. Some of them I have. I've used some of the more unique codes in here as well. All right, this is a PNEZD, so let me go ahead and grab that format, make sure everything's set correctly. Network, again, I'm not going to be using a network. The import options. All right, so the figure prefix database. Well, I don't want to use that sample one. I want to use the one that I've set up for my survey crew. Do you want to process the line work? Well, absolutely. I want those lines in there. The line work code set. Ooh, I got to go back and change that. I edited this. I need to change it back to the way it was. Tangents. Let me change that back to end curve, and then we'll try this again. So intersection, point file. Let me grab that same point file again. All right, the figure prefix database, CAD-1, the line work code set sample. If you're doing things from a drawing, so if you've imported the points into a drawing, you got in, modified the points in the drawing, then you want to put those in the survey database, make sure this is set to by point number. You can either do it by point number or by import order. If you do it by import order, basically it goes from the point tallest first in the drawing, as in the largest Y value, and works its way down the drawing, which doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I see your question, Trey. I'll get to that in just a bit. All right, so the import event name. Do you want to insert the objects into the drawing as well as the points? Yes. So I'll go ahead and hit finish here. It's going to go through and process that line work, and there's my drawing. Based off of the figures, prefix database, the description key set, and those line work code sets, I have my drawing here. Now let's take a look at some of the kind of the more unique points here. All right, so here's a building. How did it create the rest of the building with only 2 points? Well, if I go into the raw description here for this point, oh, sorry, wrong point, this point here, you can see it has these right turns on it. So I took the first point, took the second point, and then I told it to do a right turn 100 feet, then 50 feet, then 25 feet, then left 25 feet, then right 50, right 25, and then close the figure. So you can do different codes like that. Here's a lot corner. How did it know to create a line from point number 37 back to point number 13, which is a completely different description? So this is, if I go in here, edit list points, you can see this is the raw description was lot, and this one was right of way. So under the lot line, let me go back to my, come on. You can see I added in a CPN, which is connect to point number. So I told it to connect to point number 13 and to connect to point number 10. So it's drawing this figure is to connect to point number 13, and this figure is connect to point number 10. If you notice, there's a surface in here. When did I create a surface? Well, I created the surface in the template. I created the point group in the template. So if I come up here to my Prospector tab, you'll notice I have this topo point group. This was created in the template. It was set up with just the points that I wanted to be used in my surface. I also had the surface pre-made that included just that point group. So all of this was automatically set up for me. Go into the drawing, bring the points in, and I have a surface. Now I'm going to have to do some additional stuff to this surface. It's not right yet because I don't have any of my break lines in here. So I want to take these survey figures and I want to add them to my surface as a break line. So I'm going to right click on my figures here, and I'm going to create break lines from them. Actually, let me do it. Okay. So I'll create break lines from all of those figures. Now, based off of the description key sets, some of them are marked as being break lines, and some of them are not. So I select OK, and it takes all of those figures and adds them to my surface as break lines. Now, I always use a mid-ordinate distance of 0.1 here. And now my survey is almost complete. I just need to throw a boundary in here. All right, Tracy, let's go ahead and answer some questions here real quick. So Trey asked, how do you handle a point with multiple codes? That's actually really simple to do. So let me go ahead and create a new drawing here. I'm just going to create a blank drawing. And let's see, I'm going to create, oops. All right, that works. Let me create some points here. Check my prompt for us. And so here I've got a fence line. So this is going to be FL1. Flow line, sorry. Flow line 1. And here's going to be an intersection of two flow lines. So let me turn on some labels here real quick. Let's do point number and description. There we go. Style seems to be let me try one more time here. So flow line 1, elevation of 100, and why is my description not showing up in this point label? Give me just a minute. Should be displayed. Why is it not giving me a description? I must have changed the wrong setting, didn't I? Prompt for descriptions was set to automatic. Oops. Made a mistake in my prompt force. All right, let me try this again. Description. Flow line 1. There we go. That's better. Flow line 1. And here I have an intersection of flow lines. So here's going to be flow line 1, space, flow line 2. All right. Flow line 1, flow line 1, and then I'll just come over here and I'll start doing flow line 2 and flow line 2. Oops. So now when I import this survey data, I'll just create a new one, call it multiple. I know I should edit the survey database settings, but I just want to show you here real quick. Points from the drawing, select the points from the drawing. My description key set was set wrong. Let me do that again. Wrong button. All right, let me set that back to the sample one. That's where I created the. There we go. So here's my flow line 1 survey figure. Here's my flow line 2 survey figure. So I can just double code them. And in fact, if I have a tree right here in the middle of my flow line, which should never happen, right? Let me check my description key set here real quick. Oops, wrong button. So TR. Is that right? Perfect. So here I have a tree and flow line 2. And flow line 2. Oops. So one more time, let me re-import this. So you can see, even though the figure will go through the tree. So maybe I have a tree that acts as a fence post as well. The fence goes through the tree. I can do things like that as well. I just put spaces between the different codes. As far as I know, there's no limit to the number of codes that you can have. All right, Tracy has a question. The text file has to have the description right? If the survey data doesn't have descriptions, I would need to add that information in order for this to work, right? Yes. Yeah, so this all works off of the descriptions of the points. So the description keys. All right, so if I go to my description key sets and I edit the keys, the code is all coming from the description of the point. The line work code sets, these are all looking for information that's in the description of the point. So absolutely you need the descriptions, and that's all this is working off of, is just the description. So if you don't have points that have descriptions, none of these things are going to work for you. The points are just going to come in and there will be points in the drawing. So hopefully that answers your questions, Tracy. If not, let me know and I can go into it a little bit more. Chris Herrera asks, are the lines made from P-lines or lines? Well, actually neither. They're survey figures. So they're a Civil 3D object in the drawing. So if I select this and I list it, right, you can see it is an AECC survey figure. So just like just about everything else in Civil 3D, it has a style. You need to assign a style to it. You can take it and use it as a break line. If you need to edit the figure, right, you got the same edit geometry and edit elevation tools that you have for feature lines and parcel segments. So it is a Civil 3D object. If you want it to be a polyline and you don't want it to be a survey figure, after you bring it into the drawing, you can explode it and then it's a 3D polyline. I don't recommend that you do that, but some people are like, we have to have 3D polylines, and that's the process. The nice thing about this is if I do that, all right, so I come in here and I explode all this stuff. All right, so now it's just a block. Ooh, I exploded again, right? It's label. Ooh, I got text in here, and as I do this, I haven't destroyed any of the data. The data's still in the survey database. In fact, I can come in here to the drawing, erase all of this stuff, and then reinsert the figures into the drawing, and reinsert the points into the drawing. So I haven't lost any of that data. It's secure in the survey database. In fact, I can insert it into multiple drawings if I wanted to. All right, Trey has another question. Are the figures 3D? Yes, they are. So the survey figures have elevation. In this case, they all have an elevation of 0, but if my points had elevations to them, the figures would have elevation as well. Some people don't like to see their figures at elevation. You can edit the style of the figure style, and under the 3D geometry, you can have the figure display mode set to flatten to elevation and set it to 0. So you can have it display at 0 or at the elevation. All right, and just to do a quick recap here, the process for doing this, well, first of all, you need standards. Right? You can't have your survey crews out there nilly-willy picking up descriptions however they feel like it. You need to make sure that they are set to standards. You need to set up your description key sets. The description key sets controls the display of the points. How do you want the points to display? What layers do you want on? What symbols do you want? How do you want them to be labeled? Those types of things. And again, the description key sets are under the Settings tab. Point, description key sets. And you can actually create multiple description key sets if you're working with different surveyors. And the next thing you need to do is set up your figure prefix database. So under the Survey tab, Figure Prefix Databases, you create your figure prefix database. Now, anytime you see databases in Civil 3D, this stuff is not stored in the drawing. So in this case, no matter what drawing I'm working in, I'm going to have these same figure prefix databases. The description key sets are a part of the template, so you need to use that. And then you import the survey data. Home tab, import survey data. If you already have the database created, you can continue to use it, or you can come down here and create a new one. And that's the basic process. And one last question Trey has, can you have it create 2D and 3D? No, you cannot. It's one or the other. So if you want the line work at 2D, bring it in, explode it, flatten it. If you want it in 3D, bring it in again. All right, looks like I got about 6 minutes left. Let me just start off with some of the plotting type stuff. I got a few minutes. All right, so this is just going to be based off of line work. So I'm not really getting into the survey database on this part of things. So let me just create a brand new, actually, let me open up the drawing that has the line work in it. So I got this parcel line work drawing. So I basically took some of the stuff from that drawing that we were just looking at, W-blocked it out, created this drawing, and this is where I'm going to come in here and do my plat. All right, so you can see it's just a polyline. All right, simple stuff here. I want to take this and I want to make it into parcels. I'm not going to get into great detail on how to create parcels. First thing I want you to see, though, is if I come up here and I create parcels from these objects, right? So I select the objects. What site do I want it to go into? That's a whole nother discussion right there that we can have in another webinar. But I want to use a style. Oh, I only have the standard style. Whenever you're working in a drawing and the only style you see is a standard style, stop working in the drawing. You're not in a Civil 3D drawing. I want to use this line work in Civil 3D, create a Civil 3D drawing. So I'm going to create a new drawing using my template. So I'm just going to use the default template here that comes with Civil 3D. And then I'm going to use the insert command. So just like you're inserting a block, and I'm going to browse to that file. All right, make sure it's at 0, 0. You're not scaling, you're not rotating, you're not moving it. Make sure that you are exploding it. And there's my line work now. And now when I come up here to create a parcel from these objects, I have styles. And there's my parcel. Now, I got sloppy, and apparently I got some bad line work here. All right, so if I select this parcel, you can see I've got some bad line work. Whenever you're working with parcel data, make sure you got good, clean geometry. All right. What's going on here? Well, these lines don't exactly meet up at the endpoints. So by making sure that this goes to those apparent intersections there, I now get the right geometry. All right, so there's my parcels. Now, just real quick, I only got a few minutes left. Once you get your parcels created, a lot of people like to create legal descriptions. I personally hate legal descriptions. I can't stand them, but that's because I didn't have Civil 3D. So once I get my parcels created and they're the way I like them, I can go to my reports managers under the toolbox, parcel, and I can create a legal description from it. So I'll right-click here. I'll execute the report. Which parcels do you want to report on? Well, in this case, I'm going to do them all, so I'll just select OK. It's going to bring up Internet Explorer. Make sure you have Internet Explorer 9, not 10. It does not work in 10. And then you have to allow the blocked content down here at the bottom. So which parcel do you want to create the legal description for? Well, I want to do this one, or I want to do this one. So you can do them one at a time. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to start with property number 1. If you have an alignment that describes the point of beginning, you can use that. And if you have a point that has the description of the point of beginning, you can use that as well. And I'll append the report, and there's my legal description for that particular parcel. Now I'll do property number 2, insert or append to the report, and it adds it down below. So I can continue to create legal descriptions. If you don't like the settings here, for example, distances out to the 1,000th of a foot. Yeah, I know some pretty good surveyors, but they're not that good. Before you create the report, go into the toolbox settings, or the report settings. And under legal description, I can change the distance from 1,000th to the 100th. So now when I run the report, allow the block content, and this time I'm just going to do all of the parcels. You can see the distances are now out to the 100th of a foot. All right, well, I want to take a moment here real quick. Let me switch back over here on my PowerPoint presentation. Thank you, everybody, for coming and joining us today. I hope you got something out of it. A couple of things. We are online, just like everybody else nowadays, right? Facebook, we have our CAD-1 Facebook account, so follow us on Facebook if you're ever here, check in. CAD-1's also on Twitter. I have my own personal Twitter account, C3D+, so if you want to follow me, I do primarily Civil 3D stuff on my Twitter account. Every once in a while I'll post a picture of my kids, so they're cool kids, you'll like them. And I also have my own blog, civil3dplus.wordpress.com. If you have any suggestions for a blog post or any future webinars that you'd like to see, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And unless anybody has any other questions, we're going to go ahead and end the webinar. So thank you very much for attending with us, and have a great day.